I'm very excited to welcome three contributors to PostScript Magazine to this conversation today. GERALD SOON is joining us from Surrey. He's the author of the article, The Paper Trail. And Janie Harper submitted a wonderful article on traveling to South America, specifically Colombia. And we learned something about her adventures there. And Tom Skinner is multiple contributor to PostScript. He's sent us quite a number of series of photographs, and the particular article we want to talk about today and photographs we want to focus on have to do with fall photography. GERALD, I want to start with you. The first thing I want to point out here as we look at this photo from Chinatown in 1925 is that your story really covers a few different generations. It starts out as a story of your own childhood and looks back at the childhood of your mother and the early years of your grandfather. And then it really ends with the childhood of your own grandchildren. And that's what I think is one of the most interesting aspects of your article. I'm looking now at this picture of an identity card of person 15536. And it looks like a little girl. Who is number 15536?
That's my mother. When my mother was aging and I was helping her go through her things, I came across this document, and I had never seen it before. And I said, "What is this?" Because it had never been shared with our family or me. And she said, "Oh, that's just my identity paper." And I hadn't thought about asking what that was all about. And that was a result of the Chinese Act in 1923 that excluded people coming from China, and it stopped a whole raft of people from going back and being reunited with their families that they left behind because they came to Canada in search of a better life. And they wanted to, come to Gold Mountain and make a success of themselves and provide for their families back home. So this document is one that I hold very close to me because that's my mother when she was 3. And when that act was enforced, the government of the day tried to take a snapshot of all of the people of Chinese origin in Canada, regardless of if they came here, if they were born here. If you were alive at that time, you had to have that document and you had to carry it, or you faced a $500 fine, imprisonment, you could be deported. But that's my mom, Lo Gum Soo.
I've got 2 more documents here. The one on the right has the same photo and the same number, 15536, to see your mother. Tell us about the gentleman who's pictured on the left.
The fellow on the left is my dad's father. His name was Soon Ki. When I looked back at newspapers of the day and the recordings that I've been looking at of the Vancouver City Council minutes, there was a lot of anti-Asian sentiment. And there was a speaker that was going to come and rally everyone about getting rid of the Asian people in Vancouver. So my grandfather, his business was targeted because, like all Chinese businesses, Asian businesses down there, they were attacked. And it was through my work as someone transcribing minutes and having access to newspapers from back in the day that I discovered a few things. That my grandfather had been on the first page of a newspaper in Vancouver because he was testifying before Mackenzie King, who was the person that Ottawa sent to find out about what was going on in Vancouver with that riot. So I discovered a few things that day. I discovered, number one, that he spoke English. He died long before I was born. He spoke English, and he was a merchant. I learned more and more about him through research with family documents and so on. What I discovered when I was doing all of this was that the government kept track of the people that they documented. So my mother was only 3 then, and my dad was a young man when his photograph was taken. So that was something interesting that I found out, and I found other examples of that in my research as well.
So you're saying that the Mrs. Henry Soon up here was added much later.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. There's no way in 19 way back then that they would have known that she would have married my dad. I have examples that I share with classes that I talk to of people of similar ages, and they talk about them having a child in 1950. So they kept track of people and documented them without the community knowing.
So there was something of a surveillance state, really, that
Yes.
went on for years. You opened that story with some vignettes about your own experience as a child, and you ended the story now as a grandfather, talking about that history in classes with your own grandsons present. Can you tell us a little bit about those two moments in your life, that childhood moment, and what you experienced then and what you're doing now?
Well, when I was growing up, my parents always said to me when I would talk to them about people calling me names or whatever, they told me to be proud, to be a proud Chinese Canadian, and never to forget that. What I did not know at that time was that even though they were born here, they were not considered Canadian until 1947, when they had to prove with their birth certificates that they were born here. And then it was documented that they would be allowed to be Canadian. And it's interesting you bring this up, because I recently was speaking with one of my older cousins, and I said, "Do you speak Chinese?" And they laughed and they said, "No," because my whole generation of kids, most of us, the majority of us, were not taught Chinese. They wanted us to be so Canadian, they spoke to us in English. And so, because of all the discoveries that I've made, I thought, I need to share this. I need to do something. So I was speaking to my grandson's teacher, and I said, "Would you mind if I came into your class and spoke about this?" And they were quite excited. And so that embarked me on a journey where I now go into classes. And last year, I think I went into 18, both at elementary and secondary, and spoke about Chinese Canadian history and my family's connection. And so it was really, really special for me to go into my grandson's school, the classes, and I've done that for a couple of them, and I will continue to, because I have connections with those teachers now. And it's important for them to know their family history, because I never knew. My parents never wanted to talk about that, I guess, because they never did.
Well, that's terrific. And anyone who's watching this video who's interested in contacting Gerald, if you contact us at BCRTA, we'll send a link through to him and make that connection. Gerald, I'm excited to hear about what you're doing. No doubt your parents would see that their wishes have been totally fulfilled, that you, as a proud Chinese Canadian, are standing tall with your history. So thanks so much for sharing your story with us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I want to turn now to Janie Harper. So this is the article, Janie, Cycling and Hiking in Colombia. And I want to start really with this picture. because this really gets to the heart of what happened for you there. You seem to make friends wherever you went. Can you tell us about these two?
Well, it was interesting. I was looking for a Colombian cycling company that would create a tour in an area where I wanted to explore, which was actually in the coffee country, south of um, the the capital city, east of Medellin and south. And I wasn't finding any Colombian companies in my searches. And it was only through an Instagram post I tripped over this couple who are promoting the organic coffee industry in Colombia as well as cycling. So I told them that I wanted to spend a week with them. And when I arrived, prior to my arrival, I said, I would like to have a mountain bike because I'm sure it's very hilly there. And I said, I'm sure I'm going to need it every once in a while. And they were so concerned. They'd never had anyone work with them before who'd ridden an e-bike. Because as I discovered during the week, most of the routes that they took us on were actually dirt roads, um, riddled with the remains of rivers that had flooded through them. That was just beyond my possible imagination. And thank goodness I had an e-bike for some of them, or I wouldn't have made it through some of the territory. So this young couple passionate about what they do, and part of the deal was we were not to speak English.
Okay,
So
I
I
want to
was
pick
trying
up
to.
on that. I want to pick up on that because you introduced this by pointing out that you'd been speaking Spanish or learning Spanish for, I think, 10 years. And by going to Colombia, you actually could meet up with someone who you've been working with on that for that 10 years. Can you tell us a little bit about that
Oh
arrangement? Because
yes,
that's interesting.
yeah. Yeah, I discovered after about 6 years that my Spanish wasn't improving, and no matter what app I tried, every time I actually started to speak and wanted to have conversations, I couldn't do it. And it wasn't because of embarrassment or whatever. It was just simply lack of practice and lack of drawing on what was already stored in that language cupboard in my brain. And so I tripped over an app called Tandem, which is it's like a dating app for language learners. And everyone puts their bio up and talks about how they like to learn another language and what they can commit to. And this gentleman was someone that fit the parameters for what I needed because I wanted to talk at least once a week for an hour. And I wanted to make a real human connection with him. And so that was part of the reason why I chose Colombia because he lived in Medellin. And I knew that the first time I landed in South America with my personal commitment of not speaking English, I was going to want somebody to lean on to, bolster me up and make sure I kept to my commitment. And so he actually stopped his work for a week, and he's an entrepreneur, so it wasn't too difficult, and became my guide for a week and showed me around his city and all of the environ. Um, um, what is it called? The alrededors there. Yeah, it was great. And so I still talk to him to this day, every week for an hour.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, here's a photo of you crossing what looks like an extremely sturdy and reliable bridge. Is this kind of typical of the
Yeah, it
conditions?
was. It was. Because we weren't for this week of riding, we weren't riding in cities or towns. We were on back roads. And sometimes we were on highways to get to another back road, but this was basically what it was. Yes.
Well, you definitely didn't stick to the safe tourist spots. You went to what I think you called Colombia's equivalent of Machu Picchu, and
Yeah.
that was quite a hike. And tell me a little bit about this encounter.
Um, Now this is I can't remember what his name is. A Mamo. He's the Mamo. So he's the head. He's like the Pope for all of the tribes in that area. the religious leader for all the tribes. And he just happened to, we were on the way down, and I think it took us 2 days to go down and 6 days to go up. And we just happened to trip over him, and he was giving a bracelet of friendship to everybody as they came along. Wow. And he's about 95 years old, and he was just tromping his way up there. And it was very special, it was ethereal in a way. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I know all the readers of PostScript really appreciated hearing about your adventures in Colombia, and who knows, we might hear about some more as you work your way through those countries. So thank you very much, Jeannie.
For sure.
Let's turn now to Tom Skinner, who, as I said, has shared a number of photos with us over the years. And I want to focus in on our fall 2024 issue, where in a very timely fashion, Tom sent me a number of his wonderful fall photographs. And Tom, I'm just going to show a couple of these here to you because I think we need to hear from you how you got these photographs. Some of them are quite amazing. Here's a spread that we had from that article. And I'm going to just zoom in on, first of all, on this shot.
Well, it was actually in Kamloops. There's a place in North Kamloops, and it's called Tronquil, and there's a small river there. And so there are American white pelicans, and in a lot of instances, particularly in BC, you'll see them. And even in Vernon, where we live, we see them, and people will look up and they'll see these big white birds, and sometimes they're soaring. They'll go, well, they can't be pelicans because there's no pelicans in BC. And in fact, there are quite a number. So this one, if I recall, it was one of a few that the salmon were actually waiting to go up the creek. And so this one was there. And when I take pictures like this, I knew that he was diving, but sometimes you don't realize what it's going to look like until you actually look at it, after you get home and maybe you download it. But yeah, it's a pink salmon. I think I remember my son was with me on this trip, and so it's American white pelican, and it is in Tronquil over the north shore of Kamloops.
Now this, I'm really hoping you weren't right on the back of this guy when you took this picture, but I can feel his breath. Tell me about this.
Okay, my son and I, my son is 55 now, and I think this was a couple of years ago, but we used to go out quite a lot to Jasper, and this was in Jasper. And he called me and he said, if you, can we get away for 3 days? And I said, yeah, we can. And so we went. I think this was actually in the end of October. And in Jasper, they have changed the regulations for photography. There used to be some, and there needed to be regulations to stop bear jams and so forth, because people would stop, they'd get out of their cars, and there were some accidents because people weren't careful. But in this particular one, this is actually going from Jasper towards Moline Lake, and when we saw this moose coming down the road, and we stopped and we just waited. I was shocked that it was that close. And on this same day, there was a young couple of guys that were in a small rental car, and they just had summer tires on, and the moose dwarfed the car, came up and stopped and kind of sniffed around. We weren't sure what was going to happen, but yeah, that's close enough for comfort. I'd have to look at the tagline on the photo, but I'm pretty sure it's the Adams River.
Mm-hmm.
The Adams River has a sockeye run, and this is on a different trip. And my wife and I, or actually our family, even when our kids were small, would go up, and a lot of schools in our area will go up, and they'll go up to the Adams River. And I mean, some years, every fourth year is what they call a dominant year, but sometimes the biologists will, they say, well, we kind of miscued, and we think we're out by 10 million fish. And so it's quite hard to predict, but it's all, for me, it doesn't matter whether it's the Adams River or there's a small local creek where kokanee will spawn, and it's just that sort of ritual for fall. And for me, it's fascinating to go and just watch and see what's happening.
Fantastic. And I just want to close with this one because I think this is the most Canadian fall picture of the bunch on Maple Leaf. So, Tom, thanks so much for sharing these photos with our readers. I know they really appreciate it, and thanks for your participation in PostScript, and hopefully we'll see some more.
Thank you.
Well, I've got a little bit more news to share with you. Every year, our communications committee votes on the exemplary articles and images in PostScript Magazine. And I guess it's time to spring the news that the three of you have been invited for a very special reason. The Best Article Award is going to GERALD Soon. GERALD, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, GERALD, very much for sharing your story. I think that it's very powerful and will mean a lot to a lot of our readers. And it's just so encouraging to see you doing the work you're doing. So thank you very much. And congratulations on receiving this award. Well, guess who got the best travel article? Yes, Jeannie. Congratulations, Jeannie. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
And it's a little bit of not a surprise anymore, is it, Tom? But congratulations. We wanted to recognize all your good work, Tom.
Thank you very much. And
thank you.
I'd have to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't know about you, Janie or GERALD, because when you said that we were going to talk about the article, and I thought, which article did I write, and what we were going to talk, and I was outside kind of writing some stuff down, and I just about fell asleep, and then I got here and got on time. So this is a complete surprise.
We're glad we could surprise you. It would have been a surprise to everybody if you got an award for an article you never submitted. That's for sure. But yeah, we are so pleased to have this chance to visit with you and to say thank you on behalf of all your colleagues at the BC Retired Teachers Association. Your contributions really are what make our magazine special and really make that continued partnership as educators, even into retirement, such a special thing. So to each of you, very warm thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.